Welcome. We're live on BerryFlow Upstream number 47 here on Mother's Day evening with our motley yet auspicious crew. Tonight on air we have Blaze, Crackberry.com champion and editor-in-chief. How's it going, Blaze?
Can't complain. No one listens, right?
On Upstream, no one can hear you scream. As well on our bench, we host Alex Bass of Cyberbytes Inc., infamous BlackBerry 10 developer Brandon Orr, and rounding out the lineup, we have our military man, D. Stokes, and I'm James. It's great to have you all on. I know it's Mother's Day. You guys done any celebrating with your mums?
Just brunch.
Yeah, I took my wife
brunch.
to go see Avengers too. It was pretty cool.
I've heard a couple people like moms wanting to go see Avengers. Like, rock on, moms. That's exciting.
That's awesome.
Really cool of you for seeing the movie. Moms seem like the kind of type who like don't want to go when the movie first comes out because it's like, going to be packed.
Right.
You're not going to be able to keep up with the plot. So like, yeah, I'll go a week later when things have calmed down. It's a little bit more, more my speed.
We totally went at like 11:15 this morning, so it was cool.
Ah, you got that matinee.
Yeah. It was still a lot of people there though, so.
Did you guys like that movie, the Avengers? I kind of like. I was kind of in between. Blaze, you haven't seen it yet, have you? So we shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah,
No spoilers. I haven't either.
But I haven't seen it. But I've come to the conclusion that Avenger movies and basically all Marvel movies aren't going to please everybody. So I just take them for what they are.
Yeah.
I don't try and like tear it all to pieces because of whatever they didn't follow this history or whatever the case may be. They are what they are. You either enjoy them or you don't. There's no sense getting bitter about it. It's a comic, man. Just relax.
You know, I didn't get about this Avengers movie is like how much of a non-threat this Ultron guy was. Like, it was ridiculous.
It's funny because like the scope of, and this is so off topic, but we'll get there. I promise. It's funny because the scope of the first Avengers, like literally like aliens are invading the world, like, right? And now we have just like this mecha thing we created that is now like all over the internet and like reading our emails and causing mayhem, building robots and stuff. It was definitely like a smaller scope for the overall.
It's basically like the Android operating system.
But basically. It's funny because I wanted to segue our conversation of Avengers to talk about reputation. This is something that BlackBerry's CEO John Chen actually brought up at a meeting over in, I think, was it Ottawa? Was that where the meeting took place, or was it actually in Waterloo?
It's in Waterloo.
It was actually in Waterloo.
Yeah, it was in Waterloo.
Yeah, it's the Chamber of Commerce place there.
Yeah.
About 400 different heads to which he was speaking to. And he was really talking about kind of the brand strategy, where he's taking things moving forward. What do you guys think of BlackBerry's reputation? Is reputation at this point, when you have such a legacy and it's such ingrained kind of ideology out there in the public consensus, is reputation something you can change? Is that something you can really push forward and change for the mass populace? Or do you need to kind of re-envision yourself and the message of what you do? I mean, I feel like the reputation of BlackBerry is so much changing these days with their different focuses.
I think it's like it's one of those things. It kind of depends on like what kind of business you are. For tech companies, it's a little bit harder because like, all right, let's take like IBM for example. They've been in the game for so long, so like their reputation in terms of their longevity is like there and how they're pioneers, right? In terms of them, like now, it's like their reputation isn't relevant for the younger crowd, so to speak. They don't care what place IBM has in the tech world. For BlackBerry, it's kind of been like it's almost like their reputation is almost tainted, and they're doing so many great things, and they brung forth so much innovation over the last couple of years with the OS, and then recently like with the Passport. It won't really get recognized because their reputation has already been kind of damaged enough because of what Wall Street has kind of beat them up, and just the I don't want to say transgressions, but just the transition that they've been making over the last year or so. So it's kind of hard. I mean, I feel like it's everything though, because it's like, think about it, if Apple falls on their face again for like a second time, then that really hurts their reputation. Could they come back from it? pretty sure they could, but it's like, oh man, like how could you guys fall from the place that you were at? It's like you're lapping other companies almost. So reputation, I feel like is everything, but it just depends on the standpoint that you're at or you're coming from. I should say. In the tech world, I feel like your reputation is a whole lot because of all the technological advances that are happening rapidly in the world globally. So it's one of those, yeah, it's teeter-totter kind of situation.
Yeah, like I think they're in a more difficult kind of reputation scenario here than most any other companies are because a lot of people have had BlackBerry. So, and since BlackBerry's been so trashed and it's pretty much made like a mockery of so many times over the course of the past 4 or 5 years, people have turned it into kind of a laughing stock. And the problem is people who have owned the devices in the past, in their minds, they still associate BlackBerry with this old curve with the buttons, and they have their iPhones and their Androids and everything, and in their mind, so it's like a branding problem along with, just perception from other people bleeding on to everyone. I think that they're in a very, 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 they're probably one of the most difficult positions. Can you compare another company that is in as difficult as a position as BlackBerry is at or was
No.
within the last year or two?
No.
I think BlackBerry may be that company.
Can you name a smartphone maker that's been building phones for more than 10 years and has survived? Like, I can't think of many.
Yeah.
Like Nokia was in the same position and then they got bought out.
Yeah, Motorola as well.
There's been a whole bunch of cases that have been in the same position, but they've all been.
But they were never made
There's
as
a lot
fun,
of
as fun as BlackBerry though. Like I think BlackBerry is the one company in the U.S. or whatever that has been at the top and then beyond below. Like they've hit that line and they went below it. People are making fun of
BlackBerry
it
has
now.
been the punching bag for everybody within any sort of technological aspect. So they basically point to BlackBerry as the failure for pretty much anything that they can lay on BlackBerry. They do. They can't get this right. They can't get that right. Whatever, they're stuck in the old days. Whatever you could ever possibly think of as something being negative as being said about an organization, they probably said it about BlackBerry at one point or another. The brand reputation is, it's absolutely terrible, especially among people because, like Alex said, that reputation just bleeds into other people. If you constantly have somebody saying, well, this company is dead, which BlackBerry has had for pretty much the past 4 years, even the launch of BlackBerry 10 was treated as a coming back. It wasn't necessarily it wasn't just a whole new device launch or anything like that. It was BlackBerry is back from the dead. But they were never dead to begin with,
Right.
I think
that's the reputation that BlackBerry has to shake. They have to shake that they're an old device that constantly freezes and crashes or whatever, has downtime, they're not up to date, whatever the case may be. We all know, everybody here knows the negatives that are transitioned upon BlackBerry, and they really need to shake that. And I don't know how they could ever possibly shake it. It's been beat down so much. It almost feels like they should just close up shop just for the sake of it and launch as a new brand.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand with, how they define their products and how they define themselves. So you've got a reputation, but also I think nowadays more and more people are looking for, what type of lifestyle does this product, cater to and stuff like that. If you look at Apple products, or I was talking to James a while ago, and we're talking about, in the mobile space, BlackBerry doesn't really define its own lifestyle it's trying to cater to, or it doesn't really define the lifestyle it's trying to attract. So we don't really know that. And I think for its reputation, it's really got to tie on to a specific type of crowd and really pinpoint it and do it well and be a product for that crowd. So you look at Apple products, and they sell you a lifestyle. They have products, but really what they're selling you is a lifestyle. And I think the reputation and that perspective that people have on your company goes hand in hand, because your reputation is tied into how people perceive themselves using your products. And if people can't really visualize how they're going to use your products, they're not going to really like add that reputation and link that reputation to that product.
Yeah, they need to figure out their brand identity and who they're marketing to at all points in times. But even at that same time, like people make fun of them because of the brand identity that they have. So
Right, right,
it's a pretty lose-lose situation when it comes to the branding of BlackBerry at this point.
right. It's like it's funny because like people will see my passport and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't even know, BlackBerry still made phones." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Hey, what happened? What do you think?" Like, happened? You were just literally using this 2 years ago. Do you think it just completely stopped? And people are, was it fast? Yeah, it's fast. What do you mean? Like, it's crazy. But I mean, to caveat what Brandon said, because he hit it on the nail, it's like I just think the mistakes that BlackBerry made happened at the completely wrong time. Like you're talking about where in the mobile space with smartphones, the technology was growing rapidly fast. Like year after year, chips got smaller, got faster, memory enlarged, it got smaller. Phones, it just blew up. The mobile space completely blew up, and they were going downhill instead of staying on track with everyone else. Whether you're just like a few steps behind, it's like they weren't even on the same track. They were in a complete transitional period. You're trying to uh, introduce a completely new OS. It was at the wrong time. It was like, okay, had you introduced that OS back when the first Torch, launched, then yes, you would have been completely fine, but it didn't happen. So to the tech blogs and to Wall Street, they're very much alive because they're finding that niche in the enterprise space again. They're getting back to their roots. But to consumers, they're very much dead. That all plays on top of that, reputation. They can't play that lifestyle role because I think the lifestyle role is kind of like this stereotypical that's business. You think BlackBerry, you think business, and that's what they're playing into, and that's fine and dandy. But when you want to put a little bit of focus towards the consumers, it's hard trying to get those dollars back because they don't look at it for them. They look at it as just it's for the guy or the girl in the suit, if you will. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I argue with people all the time, just friends of mine, and they be like, "Why you use a BlackBerry?" I'll say, "Because I buy things that are productive for me." I buy a BlackBerry. It doesn't mean I would buy a BlackBerry laptop if a BlackBerry laptop wasn't productive enough for me. I don't use a Windows laptop anymore. I use a Mac laptop because it's productive for me. But how many Americans, how many people globally really buy electronics and things like that for those reasons? They buy it because they either seen somebody else with it and they liked it, they're influenced for whatever reason, but they don't buy it for themselves because it works for them.
Right.
And
It's a
so,
cultural priority change, right?
right,
I mean,
right.
once Angry Birds hit, I mean,
Yeah.
there goes the market. I mean, priorities and even like you said, productivity has been stomped
Right.
out. And you can be productive on. I hate The Verge. They always like caveat their BlackBerry articles as if BlackBerry is the only device you can be productive on, and that's not really the point of a BlackBerry. The point is you can be more productive, more secure,
Exactly.
with better privacy on a BlackBerry. It just makes me wonder because we're talking about reputation, and then BlackBerry put something like the Leap into the market, right? And we all know it's something for fleet upgrades, right? It's something for fleet renewals of enterprise contracts that, I have an enterprise, I'm offering secure devices to my employees, and maybe they're at a point where they don't want to carry around a classic, a keyboarded device because of some social stigma. Yet I can still offer that employee now, an all-touch form factor with the same kind of security features and flow of BlackBerry 10. With that being said, as the Leaf proliferates, we seem to have some carrier support for it around the world, right? I mean, Canada seems to be really much behind it. They've done a great job there with their carrier relations and building out some of the partnerships there to offer it. I think it's like $0 on contract, and
Yeah, pretty much every Canadian character.
that's awesome. And it's $375 Canadian, right? Is that correct on the pricing there?
Yep.
And here's something that I think has been concerned for me for quite a while, and it doesn't necessarily stem from the Leap, but it stems in maybe to future products. Like if BlackBerry were to build an Android phone or kind of disassociate themselves from solely building BB10 hardware and actually kind of expanded their own uh, software offering in terms of mobile devices, is there a way that you could get a better cost proposition with better hardware specifications? Because I see things like the Moto G, and that thing runs like quad core, you know, and it's still cheaper than what the Leap comes out to at the end of the day. Does that hurt BlackBerry's reputation, or does it foster its growth to the segment that it's aimed at, be it business and enterprise users? So we'll go from there on the Leap, guys. What are some of your thoughts? Do you think that BlackBerry is actually building the brand and that identity toward enterprise in a strong way, or do you think they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, being iterative with these same kind of base level, you know, different you know, software platforms in terms of like Classic and Leap, the Z10, Q10, that all kind of ran at this base kind of reference platform? What are some of your thoughts on the specs?
You know,
of BlackBerry devices?
the way that I see it is it's not that big of a deal. Specs really aren't that big of a deal if the phone is running great. Well, the problem here is BlackBerry 10 now is very, very, very reliant on Android apps if you want, you know, a larger selection of apps. Well, Android apps don't run that great on devices that don't have great specs. You start running out of RAM very quickly. For instance, my Z10 does not run Android apps as well as my Passport did. Like when I got my Passport initially, it was so speedy compared to my Z10. But even the Passport, you know, you need higher specs than even that to really be emulating a full environment and run apps within that. So do I think that, you know, specs need to be improved? Yes, because of the direction that they're taking, relying on Android. Otherwise, I would say specs really aren't that big of a deal. The Passport has great specs and don't necessarily need any more, but they are emulating. They need higher specs. Just the path
Right.
they took.
It's like you can only optimize the software so much before, you know, it really is like, okay, you got to do something with the specs now. And, you know, I just really think that the device itself, it has everything has its purpose. I feel like right now with BlackBerry, and I think we always see the results later and be like, ah, that's why you did it. But at the same time, it's kind of like I still don't see why you did it. You know, I just feel like it really shouldn't just be purely focused on enterprise. I mean, it's cool that, you know, people of the enterprise world were kind of, you know, asking for a device as such, but at its price point and the specs that it gives and the abilities of the operating system that it has in terms of running the Android applications, I really feel like it has to be pushed as that entry level device to the OS. Like I felt like it should have been like a some kind of crusade of some sort amongst the carriers globally, like saying, hey, push this out to your customers. Like, let's bring back on those consumers. Give them the price point, give them the specs in terms of, and I don't want to say specs, I would say more of the form factor, push that to them and really kind of get it out there. Like, I think that's just part that it has to have. It doesn't really help the reputation at all. It stays stagnant, if you ask me.
It's tough though. I mean, when you come down to the performance on devices like that, it's good for, you know, the business user. But like, you know, the person who wants to, you know, play a really robust Android game, it's just not there. I mean, even on Passport, it's just not, like as Alex said, you know, the specs really need even more than that in terms of the Adreno and what's pushing the graphics behind it to do what they're doing. And in reputation stake on the BlackBerry Leap specifically, I think it's so tailored to a specific user, and that user is so uncategorized in terms of the overall branding and materials. I mean, I've literally seen, aside from Crackberry, like there are no good video reviews of the BlackBerry Leap. Zero. Aside from the little commercial they did, which was awesome, by the way, there's nothing out there in terms of media pushing this thing. So really, is it like this device that's supposed to play in subterfuge?
And that's
Are
been a
consumers
trend.
not supposed to know about this device at all? You know?
Yeah, and that's been a trend with a lot of their recent products that they've come out with in the past year, with the exception of the Classic and the Passport, but other products as well, like BBM meetings and things like that. If you look on the internet, search on YouTube, you really don't see much in the way of people doing reviews on them and that type of word of mouth type of stuff going on. So I mean, they also have to get it in front of the right people as well, I think, and maybe those people just aren't us. But that's another discussion altogether. I think the Leap in general as a device, in terms of its proliferation, as I've mentioned before, I'm just not sure who they're quite trying to attract with this. Like I said before, they have to define who they're trying to attract, and really it's kind of a hodgepodge here with the Leap. They have it as a $0 on on a contract, and it's like, but it's not really cheap enough for people to want to buy off contract and get it, but it's really not a type of device that people are going to really want to sign on to a contract to get for free either. So I'm not sure exactly who that specific market is that's really going to want this device.
It's funny that you mentioned that there aren't many like reviews and like kind of product demos and things of software in the OS, and you kind of like think back, and every time there was a big leak, then that was videotaped more than enough, and everyone watched it a lot. And then like take a look over at this Win beta. Every time there's a new build on Windows 10, they release a video, and that video gets between 50 and 200,000 views just to see minor changes. Like, hey, maybe they made the search bar a little bit wider, and they had a transparency here. So it's like, okay, maybe BlackBerry, like if you did a public beta or something, and it wasn't all signed off on NDAs, it was more of kind of an open source thing, then people would be creating the content for you and sharing it, and people will be seeing it. If you're not going to do it, then let us do it for you. I don't know.
Preach, Alex, preach.
I'm pretty
I'm
sure
going to bed
that's
now.
exactly what.
Alex, you take over. I'm done.
Like it's funny. In all honesty, if you look back like a year and a half back on Crackbear, the community was, really getting into it with all the leaks, and people were just, pining for some new leaks to come out. And the second like a tiny leak came out, you'd have like a thread full of thousands of comments the next day of people just talking about the most minute changes.
Yep.
But it was really a really fascinating time to be a BlackBerry fan around then, because here's an OS that a lot of people out there don't really know about, and yet it had this thriving community of people who were just craving for the next thing, no matter how small or big it was. And I think now you see leaks come out, but we don't really see that same type of excitement that we used to see maybe a year or two back.
Yeah, I mean, and they want to keep it closed because, realistically, you don't necessarily want to give away all of your big changes so everyone sees, like your competition can see and steal the ideas. But, honestly, everything is moving towards open source, and if people just start sharing it, then someone, a friend of a friend of a friend might happen to see a video as opposed to not seeing anything whatsoever and saying, oh, BlackBerry is different than what I thought they were. Oh, that's actually kind of cool. It's just word of mouth going through just content creation. It could really reach a lot more people, and that could be the marketing for them. Just being more open source. It's helped Windows a lot. Windows was so closed off, and this Windows 10 has been huge just for people sharing it and the hype that's been going on. It's been phenomenal, and advertising didn't cost anything for that, really.
Word of mouth is still only going to take you so far, right? There needs to be access points for information and done in a way that's really engaging. And we'll talk more about that as we kind of transition here, because it's part of BlackBerry's culture really right now, because they're so focused on that enterprise space and nailing it down that what we're complaining about, what we're talking about, is really not even on the scope for them. They've got a priority right now, a mission statement to secure enterprise, secure IoT, and really look forward. Yes, there are mistakes made, management seasons ago, like so many times, so many years ago, that they can address those once they have a secure footing, right? Once they've reclaimed enterprise and have a strong foothold, then they can turn their prospects back to what has been lost. But again, things are mending. Brandon mentioned, back then, it was such an interesting time to be a BlackBerry 10 user, but it still is, Brandon. We don't want you to get disheartened. Things are expanding. Our CEO with John Chen has really taken the helm here and worked on building and reconnecting on some of those relationships. And those relationships extend to the customer, they extend to the enterprise, and they extend to the carrier partner, the person who's ultimately going to be selling that device to the end user. So we see BlackBerry working with AT&T on some mobility forums. These forums are geared toward mobilizing enterprises with BlackBerry devices and even just general education on overall privacy and security. It's really cool that they're doing this and that they're working with their partners in an integrated way to show off those solutions. So again, will a consumer see and get demos and told about how amazing BlackBerry 10 is? No. but the person right now that needs to see it will. And that's going to continue to grow and foster as it moves forward. What are some of your thoughts? I mean, there's a lot of carrier stuff, and we'll talk about T-Mobile, we'll talk about Magenta a little bit later. But in terms of like AT&T, I think it's pretty interesting to see that it is really a kind of evolving relationship where they want to reclaim this business sector.
It's Bell's directed, but I think it's great to really kind of hit the road and really kind of get like hands-on with the people, excuse me, and really introduce them to the software, introduce them to the features and the abilities, the capabilities that it has across the board, supporting other platforms, which I think is important because as much information that they've put out and pushed as far as what Bell's 12 is concerned, I think there's still a lot more out there for people to absorb in terms of the knowledge about the software itself. And I think you're also going to get kind of a couple other gems in terms of the security that it provides, the level security, and just a plentiful, amount of options that you can do across the board with it. I just think what AT&T is kind of doing, I think they're the first carrier that's really showing the support of BlackBerry instead of just saying like, hey, we'd like to see them succeed, as a lot of the other carriers have said. They're really doing something about it. So what I want to see next is kind of more push towards the consumers, kind of putting dollars behind that, seeing more displayed BlackBerry 10s in other AT&T stores, not saying like, we have the passport, but we can order it for you. It's not here. Something like that. But I mean, I think this is a first step, we're not going to be ungrateful and, go out on the limb and just bash. But I think it's good for them to really start tying together and making something happen like they are with this.
Man, it's one of those things. It's one of those things. Like, yeah, okay, AT&T is doing these mobility forums, and they're taking BlackBerry stuff, and they're showing all these enterprise things and stuff like that. And we also saw, as James said, we'll get to it later, but we saw T-Mobile basically bring back the BlackBerry Classic. But part of that actual announcement that I think a lot of people overlooked was the actual concentration on work. It was T-Mobile at work that was pretty much the bigger part of it. They introduced it basically to business customers at that point in time. So that was actually part of the announcement. Everybody looked at it and saw, okay, T-Mobile's back together, they're bringing out the BlackBerry Classic, but I don't know if anybody else got it, but I also got an email that day basically advertising T-Mobile business stuff and saying that BlackBerry was part of all of that. So, it like Darius said, you wish that a lot of that would transition over to the consumer market, but I don't think a lot of that is going to transition over to the consumer market. You're not going to see those consumer pushes. You're going to see the business pushes, and that's all we're going to see from now on. It's like business, 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 for better or worse. I mean, it's one of those things. That's what BlackBerry has to do, and that's what they've been telling everybody that they're going to be doing.
Yeah,
they're going back to business, man. Back to business.
It's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, and the more and more that we see carriers step away from trying to be the device, they just want to be the service. So really, why does it matter if they're offering BlackBerry or iPhone or Android or whatever it is? They don't really care. So if they could do some kind of marketing campaign where they say BlackBerry, business, here's some business phones, they don't care. They just want business consumers on their service. They don't care what phone you get. Like, they really don't care what phone you get as long as you're using them. And it's going to be more like that. So, and it's not surprising that they finally got back together.
Yep. You're absolutely correct.
Talking about the mobility forum, they're talking here about, the cross-platform nature of BES 12, including iOS, Android, Windows, mobile, to get some of that insight on the best practices to enable the mobility that you have, regardless of device. Because again, as Alex said, all about mobility.
I think you guys are absolutely correct. What Darius said when he was talking about, it's good to see some actual action on that front. I mean, when we heard years ago, or like since BlackBerry 10, whenever you hear telecommunications CEO talking about, yeah, sure, we'd like to see BlackBerry succeed. Yeah, well, like, they don't really care if they succeed or not, because they're still going to be selling the service that no matter which device they sell, they're still making a profit up. So it's good to start seeing them actually selling BES and some of these other and classic stuff, and the classic on T-Mobile, because then you actually see some action on that front instead of just talk.
Love the way you said mobile. That was just gave me chills. It's definitely an interesting and expanding focus for them, and I'm glad that they're being true to themselves at the very least. They're not like dancing on either side of this line. They're like, all right, we're all here, we're all in, and we're gonna do this, you know. And that's something that with Heinz we were kind of missing, right? Like Bez 10 and Bez and the BlackBerry 10 kind of came out too quickly, and it was broken, right? And broken in the sense that it wasn't a fully integrated experience, which is what they honestly needed. So it's great for you to mention on that, Brandon. I think the mobility forum and working with AT&T is going to be vital for them as they push forward, because again, it's reputation that needs to change, and maybe not a consumer reputation right now, but within the business sector, they need to reaffirm themselves as a proper solution, a secure and viable solution, and that's something that really they haven't been in a conception sense for quite a while. If we're talking about conception and we're really moving forward here with the conversation, what do you guys think about BBM channels, targeted audiences? They kind of threw that out there without even telling us, right? It's really cool. Now you can drill down the content for your posts. I can hit an iPhone user running a specific OS down to 6, you know. I can choose just BlackBerry and Android. I can really target my demographic to a specific age. The thing is this going to be valuable for channeling posters? In my opinion, I still just want to post to everybody. But I can see some brands may want to target specific types of promotions and advertisements. What do you guys think about channels? It seems like we're getting a couple tweaks here and there. They kind of are maybe bolstering forward with it.
Okay, let me just start off first. Those features are important. Those features are very important if they want to have channels used by enterprise. But the only reason an enterprise would be using channels is if there's enough people using channels to begin with for them to even bother having content on channels that people will see. So, I mean, it's good that they have these features, but they also need, you know, some of the more important features like multiple admins on an actual mobile device, so that you can actually have multiple people adding content to a channel, so that more people are actually using channels and putting up content on channels instead of, you know, catering just to the enterprise from that perspective. Because the enterprise, in this specific case, this is one specific case where you really can't just focus on the enterprise. You really do need to make it catered towards the consumer space to get those people on channels and actually using and creating that content, so that there is a worthwhile opportunity for enterprise to go in there and show content there.
Man, Brandon, you just pumped me up, bro.
Brandon's like,
no, because he like
his energy right now.
It was like he just, I don't know, you killed it, guy. But I mean, it's honest. It's like you can give us, you know, you finally give us the ability to have, you know, multiple admins. You finally give us this targeted channel. I don't want to say finally, because I can't say that this is something that had been asked for so long. It's just a great feature that should have been there all along, of course. I will say this. Let's start off positive. We're glad that we're still seeing tweaks and features being added to channels. So we're glad to see that they still care about channels. Now, really do something with it. Really make it attractive. The baby is still ugly. All right. So you have to do something to make it attractive. You have to do other things within the core application to give it that leverage to start taking off. I mean, it's still kind of one of those, to me, I feel like it's a very enterprise-based application within BBM. And that's just truly what it is. It's not for consumers. It's not for all the BBM users. It really isn't. We're just making it useful, if you will, in my eyes. I just feel like everyone who has a channel, you're just making that application useful. But is it really truly catered to those who use it? I don't feel like it does. I don't. You know, there's so many things that can still be implemented with channels, and it's kind of like, where's Jubei when you need him to give you this wide list and array of features that it could hold? But that's neither here or there. It's just the point of the fact is that, you know, it's just, hey, we're glad that you still showing, you know, channels some attention. That's all I can really say.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Dude,
Sure.
don't change topics yet. Are they? Is this the only social network right now that without paying? I know like Twitter, you can pay and you could target. Same with Facebook, everything. Is this the first technical social network that you can actually tailor to a demographic? Because I don't think I've seen other big social networks right now that you can do that to your
No,
existing subscribers.
no.
I find that so interesting because, hey, like the amount of engagement you can get from this now, targeting specific users, aged this to this within these countries on an Android phone. And you don't have to annoy your other subscribers who are on Blackberries that don't want to hear about your new iOS or Windows app. Like, that's so smart. And it's like, I wonder if, Twitter and these other companies have thought of doing that, but they're like, no, we'll make that a paid feature. But this is for your existing subscribers. I think it's really interesting, and Channels has so much potential. I just wish they focused more on it.
I think the closest you can possibly get to it is just like with Facebook, and whether you want the public to be able to
Yeah,
see it or just your
your
friends.
circle. Okay, yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like that's
yeah,
pretty much the closest thing you get
yeah.
to outside of Channels. And I mean, it's just, oh man, just from when Channels launched, and I was just saying, and I don't know, when I kind of said it, I was like, you kind of sound crazy, but the potential that it had to be kind of that next big social media outlet, it really does have that. It's just, Jesus Christ, man.
Just wait, because
What, since,
Marco has been working on this super cool thing about channels. Let's just targeting demographics is cool, right? Geo-targeting. I can plumb down to country specific, let alone BlackBerry, Android, iOS, and then the versions that they're running. As I said, it is pretty cool, and it's also robust. It's not just like age demographic. They actually break it down for you and really allow you quite a lot of options there within. I'm glad, again, that they're bringing new features. But again, I'm sad that they're not telling us about it, that I have to go to Crackberry to even learn about this new feature or literally stumble upon it myself. I'm going to link on Alex so we can see a little breakdown of it. This is the BBM Channels web admin backend, and you can see here demographics.
Male, female, ages, country, just throw them in there, and then like to the extent where BlackBerry 7, 6, 5, is Channels even on 5?
What
Yeah,
the
it
hell
probably
is
is.
BlackBerry 9?
right, like that.
What is BlackBerry 9?
Oh,
You
an
guys,
internal thing.
Doesn't even exist.
those are the dev alpha.
Okay.
Not 4.
That was a joke.
I wonder if all these analytics and stuff like that. I wonder if in the future they'll allow one channel to be used in different regions. So for instance, say you're like just talking hypothetically, say you're BlackBerry, and you know how now with Twitter and other social networks they need to have multiple accounts for different jurisdictions. I wonder if maybe channels in the future they'll be able to directly put specific channel posts to specific regions so that it would cut down on that need to have 20 different channels accounts if you're one company or something like that.
But here's the thing: how many companies are actually using BBM channels? How many channels do you subscribe to that are actually from a company?
Exactly.
And how many times have you personally gone to BBM channels and said, "Hey, I only want certain people to see this post"?
Right.
I'm guessing never, because realistically, everybody wants everyone to see their posts.
Right.
It's like, if there's businesses out there, yeah, I can understand them very specifically targeting. But
Yeah.
I've never seen these businesses on BBM channels. Coca-Cola let their channel drop off, whatever the case may be. All those channels are not as active as what they once were when they were officially announced. So who is this useful to? It's not useful to me.
Definitely
You
businesses.
know what would be useful
Yeah.
to me? The ability to damn well edit my freaking post. I don't
Right.
need to target all of these individual
Yeah.
people. I really don't care about it because, like I said, I want everybody to see my post. I don't care if you're on iOS, Android, or whatever.
Right.
I don't care your age either. I want everybody to see my post. But if I screw up and I have a typo in that post, I don't want you to see that. I want to be able to edit that shit and then let you see it. You know what I'm saying?
It's like I think these little updates we've been getting, like with the multiple admins, and then this one now, uh, it's kind of like these are little bits and pieces for like this huge update to come. It's like don't give it to me if you're not gonna give me the whole circle, like
I don't know who they're for. I'm left wondering who they're for.
Right.
Especially for something like Crackberry, where the most important thing is being able to ensure that the content you're putting out there is correct. So if you make a typo or something on the price of a device, it's really useful to be able to quickly correct that so the information there is correct instead of having to delete it and put another post, right?
Yeah, and then if you delete it, here's the other thing. If you delete it, say for example I did make a typo, I deleted that post, I caught it and I deleted that post. The thing is that people are still seeing that typo post out there even after I initially corrected and put up a new version of it because of the way the channels updates. So they're seeing the typo post and then they're seeing the corrected post, and basically it looks like, hey, you know, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing because he just posted two things, the exact same thing, you know, generally looking at something, right? I don't understand it. It's cool that they're adding it, but I just don't know who they're for because they're not for me, you know?
Yep.
It's a frustrating thing, right? Because we want and we see potential in it. But at the same time, it does seem like they're kind of building toward this grand vision. I know the company that they acquired for the back end, Strone, which is a French startup, back when Bolpin was there in office or at the CMO helm, they did a lot of this stuff. Basically, they were almost like a Hootsuite for brands, right?
Yeah.
But we see not a lot of that here. Maybe they can build towards something where they can really, really bring that about. I'm interested at least that they are targeting to audiences. Now, BlackBerry should take that same mentality and then target their own branding toward audiences specifically.
Right.
So I want to transfer over. We talked a little bit about it earlier. Let's talk about T-Mobile Classic, Magenta, Back in Black. Very cool announcement. Just the social media around it. A lot of people are writing these like obtuse headlines. They really were like these like hilarious headlines that, you know, aggrandize what was actually happening. But really, it was a way for BlackBerry and T-Mobile to both push forward with a front toward that business user. That business user is out there. The business user is probably on a 9900 or a 9930 still, you know? There are still plenty of millions of people that they can bring over to BB10. They can bring over to new carriers and new partners. So it's absolutely viable, I think, that these two actually sat down, had a conversation, and were like, actually, I don't hate you at all, you know? Our lack of communication is what broke down the relationship. But now that we're communicating again, we actually have pretty even field for which we can discourse, right? What do you guys think? Is this going to be a sustained thing? I mean, are we going to see Passport? Are we going to see the slider? Or are we going to see just those die-hard BlackBerry devices on T-Mobile? What are some of your thoughts?
I mean, right now it's just been announced as the Classic, but I think overall you could possibly see other devices come. I don't think it's going to be the Passport. And I mean, the slider, I believe, could be like the next device. If the Passport were to be sold, I would be extremely surprised. I'll be happy to see that as well, but I'll be extremely surprised to see the Passport being put on there because I think, especially with AT&T coming out with its own variant, I think other carriers kind of want the same thing too. You know, so I really don't see them putting anything else out there other than just the Classic, and I think the Classic is going to be one that's going to be pushed, you know, pretty much across the board as it already has been. But you know, I think it's here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's going to be a healthy, you know, situation now. I think what T-Mobile is trying to do, because, you know, even though it's like when the breakup first happened, it didn't really hurt them in the long run. I mean, you know, at first, but I just think they felt like, all right, if we kind of want to really begin competing, not to just be the 3 spot, but really begin competing against Verizon and AT&T, we have to have we have to have one more choices. So that means we have to provide devices across the board, not just Android and iOS and Windows Phone, of course. But I don't know. I just think it was, you know, kind of what is his name?
This
Leger.
year.
Okay, yeah. But I think it was just more of his pride and then Chin's pride as well. Not necessarily like Chin's pride was in a way because I mean I felt like what he's did at the time was very necessary, and I think it was great. I mean, put your foot down, let them know like, okay, yeah, we might not be in the best shape, but you know what? If you don't even appreciate what we do offer, then we're not going to offer anything from you guys. I mean, for you guys, so to speak. So, I think now they've kind of just put the pride aside, settle differences, say, hey, where can we start new? This is what we're offering. And I think Leger, I think he kind of respects and also sees what BlackBerry has going on right now because they're a hot topic, not just on Wall Street or in the tech world, but in terms of the future and other products that could be offered that we're yet to see yet. I think he feels like BlackBerry has a hot hand in the pot right now. So, it kind of goes both ways for them both.
I mean, it's software. It's not just hardware.
Right, right. And like with T-Mobile, I just want to say like T-Mobile is also showing great initiative in what they're doing with their customers too. So why not try to get on board with that?
I think it absolutely ties into the reputation topic we were talking about earlier. I think it was really important, echoing what you said, Darius, for John Chen to make that move and pull BlackBerry, saying, we still have pride in our product, and if you're going to treat our product like that, then we don't want to have it on your service. And now, after the dust is settled and it's coming back, we see that, as an outsider looking in, it looks like, what, they can connotate a better reputation to the product coming in now because it doesn't seem like BlackBerry was just on their knees hoping to give their product to anybody. It actually shows that there's some type of control process on their end to determine, which is really the best benefit for them to have their devices on.
They're probably, oh crap, like 20% of our users are on T-Mobile. let's put a device in store, No, but it's definitely, it almost like is almost like, we were talking about this before the stream went on. It's just good PR, right? It's just good business to mend your broken bridges. I don't want to say burnt. They clearly weren't. But it shows maturity, right? And it shows a way forward. And they both can benefit. And that's ultimately where we need to be. More carriers around the world need to look at BlackBerry as a venue to hit a different kind of user. And that's really what John Chen and the management teams in place need to be able to really vocalize and show. It's like, hey, we, with our software and our hardware, have the ability to bring you to customers that you're not hitting right now, new customers. And if not, transition over some of your old ones who are looking for something more productive, like Mr. Stokes over here. It's definitely a very interesting kind of scene as they transition moving forward. I'm glad Magenta's back. I want to talk about work-wide. We're kind of winding down here. I want to talk about a couple other things as we tribute out toward the end of our stream here. But work-wide, awesome native application for BlackBerry 10 done by a co-op developer team. The app is awesome. I don't know if any of you guys have used it before. It's really is something that's like built for Passport. And there's not many like apps right now that are native to BlackBerry 10 that are built for Passport, like designed and optimized for that specific device. So it's really cool to see one that doesn't only innovate on what the Passport can offers, but it really takes it beyond that with integrations with other applications. So this latest version, 1.3, actually integrates the popular Black Twitter client for BlackBerry 10 right into the work-wide application. So you can literally run Black on one side, a browser on the other, a text document on the other, or a composer, SMS. Really gives you some unilateral uses. It's a very cool application. Crackberry's posted about it. BerryFlow has posted about it as well. Certainly check it out. I want to just skim across it here because we have a couple other topics that we definitely worth talking about. Workwide is one of those applications, though, that like you really need to see it in use to really get what it's all about. It's something you need to make part of how you flow, how you work. I found myself not using it and then thinking, man, I should have used it because it would have cut down a lot of the stuff in between apps I would have been doing. But definitely check out Workwide, especially if you're a Passport user. But the app is also available on Q devices like the classic Q5, Q10, and also on all-touch devices. So you can use it in portrait and still get that awesome experience. Now, what do you guys think about John Chen on Twitter? It's one of those things, right?
Yes. Please, Chris, speak. Please speak.
Oh man, I think it's awesome that he's on Twitter. Like, what CEO these days isn't necessarily on Twitter? I mean, you got to be on Twitter. If anything, John Legere has basically shown that you should be a loudmouth on Twitter. Like, even if you don't like him or you don't like anything that he has to say,
Yeah.
his presence, his mere presence on Twitter is just basically a prime example of how these CEOs these days need to actually be out there and, like, you know, interacting with customers and catching some of the feedback and, you know, dismissing some of the crappy feedback or information that's out there, whatever the case may be, right? You know, I would love to see John Chen, like, go after somebody who was putting out, like, false information. I would love to see that. I would just love to see it. At the end of the day, I don't necessarily know if John Chen himself is running the Twitter account, because we all know that there are a lot of people who, you know, basically let their PR agents run their Twitter account. But, you know, hopefully it really is him on the end, and hopefully he's taking care of it, and hopefully he'll actually, you know, become more interactive on there. Just don't tweet from your wife's Samsung phone or anything like that. That would be pretty bad.
Yeah, so many people follow Legere just because he's a funny guy to follow, and like, you don't expect, like, what he says. So if you can start getting people actually who respect John, who might not be on BlackBerry, just to follow him, you're building up a network that you could essentially advertise to. And it's like, why would you not do that? And it's a personal brand thing too. Once John eventually leaves BlackBerry in however many years, he's not going to be at BlackBerry forever. You build up a brand identity, a personal brand identity, and that's a good thing to have. So I think it's smart that they did that, whether or not it's him. But I completely agree with what you said.
I mean, even Leisure said, like, you know, part of the whole T-Mobile, you know, being removed from T-Mobile thing was, you know, let's get John Chen on Twitter and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
That was what Ledger said when after they had their little bit of a spat. So you know, maybe if Chen was on Twitter at that point in time, it wouldn't have blown up as big as what it did, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, one thing I can say about Legere is that if you're a customer like T-Mobile, it kind of feels like you're running T-Mobile, because he's a very outspoken person. He's really in touch with, like, the younger crowd, but you know, because he's so in touch with his customers, right? But I think that's also a good thing when you have a CEO that's vocal like that uses Twitter, you know, for that soapbox, you know, to speak about whatever is being said about either your country or your company, or, you know, just in your work field, so to speak. Like, it really does kind of get your customers behind you. Like, yeah, you know, like, we really like the brand because this person not only just speaks how they feel, but they kind of stay in touch with us as well. And for some people tweet, and getting a reply on Twitter, it means the world to them. So, you know, for John Chen to make that move, whether it's just simply a PR move, which I feel like it is, but I think it's cool. You know, if people can ask questions, just to go on there like once a month, do a little quick Q&A, you know, for consumers, like, I think that's kind of cool. And just spread information here and there, you know, give teasers if possible.
Yeah, I think nowadays it's kind of expected for, you know, CEOs to kind of be thrust into the public space like that, and have a Twitter account more and more now. And I think it goes, like as you were saying, Darius, he kind of runs his mouth sometimes on Twitter, but at the same time, he has personality. And I think nowadays people want to see in a company is they want to see some personality behind a company. They don't want to see some CEO who's up in his office who never interacts with the public or people like that. You know, you kind of, for all the things that John Legere says that are kind of dumb or off the cuff, at least you can see some humanity behind it, and you can say, you know what, that guy makes mistakes just like me, and, you know, there's something sincere about it. I can kind of relate to that in a sense. You know, and it's one of those things that it's a public relations move, and it's one of those things that, you know, it's just another step forward for BlackBerry. And John Chen in this case.
It's interesting because, like, as this stream has gone on, John Chen has actually put out a blog post on inside BlackBerry. So it's funny. I mean, we tweeted him here from the BerryFlow account, while this was going on. And you know, as Darius said, as Brandon said, it's just good to be there. Presence is something BlackBerry has been lacking. So in any form we can have it, I think presence is going to be a strong thing moving forward. Even as we tweet him our desires and our forlorn hopes, maybe he's listening, you know, and that's some hope that I think the community definitely needs. And because he is responding to some people, it definitely gets the community speaking in the right direction. Let's talk about Chen. I just want an Android phone that runs, you know, on BlackBerry hardware. You know, he's reading that like, I got you. But definitely a change in corporate culture at BlackBerry. And I think that's kind of the takeaway from this stream for the viewers out there, that there are things changing. We've defended ourselves, and we've also come back with a lot of pride and a lot of humility as well, that the changes that we're making are going to be for the positive to help the growth that we're looking to garner. So definitely good, I think, that they're building forward on that. With that being said, as we grow forward, we have to maybe leave some things behind. And maybe not by choice, but things do change. And this is really, you know, I'm talking at this point about Heidi Davis, because she was such a momentous part of BlackBerry through the years. Heidi was SVP of Corporate Communications. She spoke with all of us at the blogs, helping us coordinate with the devices, with the reviews, getting the information we need to put out some of the media pieces. And really, she's been part of what has glued BlackBerry together. I put out a very interesting piece done by Bob Egan on Forbes, talking about how wonderful she was, the accolades that her campaigns have garnered in very recent months for Passport and other devices. And I want to pass it over to Chris, because I think he can articulate even more aptly, because he's been in the scene so long with BlackBerry, just how profoundly important Heidi was to BlackBerry, and what a tremendous loss it really is.
Yeah, I mean, Heidi did. It was basically, it's not necessarily, you know, on the front lines, so everybody doesn't necessarily get to see exactly what she did at BlackBerry or anything like that. But when it comes to the bloggers and, you know, all the websites and stuff like that, you know, customer relations, PR relations with those individuals is very, it has to be done right. And, you know, if you're not reaching out to those people and doing it in such a good way as what Heidi is capable of doing, then you're not doing your job right. And that's part of the thing that I don't think a lot of people necessarily realize. Heidi was absolutely amazing at her job, and she really did a lot for everybody when it comes down to, you know, helping us out and helping us deliver some of the BlackBerry messages, especially on the blogs. And realistically, like, there's no way that anybody can appropriately relay that to somebody who wasn't necessarily in the situation and working with her. It's basically, if you worked with Heidi, then you know how absolutely amazing Heidi was, and she would do anything to help you out. Whatever you needed to be successful in doing, she would make it happen for you. And like I said, the majority of people, if you've never had the opportunity to work with her, you're not going to know that. But for those who did have the opportunity to work with her, everybody knows it. She's absolutely amazing. And, you know, there's nobody out there who could say a terrible thing about Heidi, because it's just not possible. She did everything that anybody could ever possibly ask for. She went above and beyond so many times. Like, whenever you need to be, I can't even, that's all I can really say. She was just absolutely amazing.
Really was. And really, just the embodiment of the passion and loyalty, it made you excited when you spoke with her, right? To really,
Yeah,
just to be there in her presence, and really kind of, even with the people that she helped coordinate, right, the different teams, just coordinating with them on that focused message. It's something that I feel, at least, that as she transitions to whatever she may do next, she's going to take that same kind of energy and thrive no matter where. So
yep.
that's the good part about it, right? I'm still thinking, like, there's going to be a hole here. Has Chen pulled in someone else to fill in on the HR side and the PR side? Or are we going to see someone internally kind of rise to the ranks and take on the mantle? And how that transition is handled and that execution is going to be really pivotal as they move forward. Do they want to move closer to some of their media contacts and foster some shared growth, or do they want to kind of pull away and focus more on a siloed kind of marketing play and experience? Again, going to be very interesting, especially with new devices like the slider coming out, which are going to have an aggregated kind of coalesced marketing vision with them. Very, very interesting how they're going to play this moving forward. But Heidi definitely will be missed. Again, amazing contributions across 3 different executives in seat at the helm of BlackBerry, having to deal with all of that. It's just such a powerful impact that she's had on BlackBerry. I really do hope that kind of the culture that she's left behind lives on beyond her time there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to say something. I've never actually personally spoken to Heidi, but every person that I've met that has had the opportunity, the privilege to speak to her, has always had glowing praises to say about her. They always said that she was an awesome person to deal with, and I think that's a testament to the work that she did. And I think even though I didn't directly get to talk with her or work with her, I think it, based on what I've heard from other people, definitely is a loss to BlackBerry to see her to go.
And it's such a hard thing to kind of come to terms with, because we've seen so many good people go, right? And hopefully for the better in terms of BlackBerry, in terms of their own lives, right? Because you don't want to stay somewhere and just be frustrated, you know? You want to be able to be happy and open with who you are and what you're doing. So as BlackBerry transitions, I think we all need to kind of transition to kind of get up to pace with what's going on. The market is changing, the company is changing, and so are the people. So is the blood that pumps within BlackBerry Limited right now. So that culture is changing, and I think as well the user base should be changing. But we should keep all that in mind as we kind of move forward here. I want to make mention before we go that we have Downstream coming very soon. Very, very soon. And if Downstream was probably mentioned like on episode like 30, like like so long ago, but Downstream will basically be our year anniversary. And Brandon had a fantastic idea for episode 52. Again, we're at 47 right now, episode 52, to do it as a drinking game. And we're not quite sure what the rules are going to be, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be integrated, and it's going to be a really kind of collective look at maybe some of the top 10 news bits. So we're really looking forward to that particular stream, and of course bringing you these weekly streams, even on Mother's Day. I called Mom earlier this morning. She's like, "The show must go on," and I'm like, "All right, Mom, I'm doing it. We're gonna do it." Really appreciate everyone's time taking it out here for us on Upstream 47. This has been Reputation, and hopefully we can take that above and beyond in the future. Brandon, Darius, Alex, Chris, really appreciate having all you on. Everybody have a great night.
Later.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Mama.